All right, so let's talk a little bit about the cell theory. We've already looked at cells before, but now we're going to look at how did we come up with an understanding of what cells are, where they are, and why they're so important. So if you recall, what you see here is Robert Hooke. We've already talked a little bit about him, and we said that he created the first compound microscope that was able to really see a great amount of detail. Not the first compound microscope, period, but the first one that gave us a lot of detail. And here is this microscope. Remember, he used it to look at cork. And what he saw in the cork was these little compartments, and he called them cells. So this happened in the mid 1600s. So it was quite a long time that people were interested in cells, but a while until they were able to really learn much more. This man is Matthias Schleiden. Schleiden in 1838 realized that all plants are actually made of cells. He was a botanist, so he was very interested in that particular field. So he concluded, after looking at many different samples of plants under a microscope, that all plants are made of cells. This man worked very closely with Schleiden. This is Theodor Schwann. He was a zoologist, and in 1839, he realized that all animals are made of cells. So now you've got these two people who are quite qualified to really look at plants and animals, and they're only a year apart in their discoveries or their realizations. And these two together came up with this idea that all plants and animals are made up of cells. And this is something that we know now, but was very unique and very exciting at the time because people really did not know that. Now, several years later, this is about 16 years later, in 1855, this is Rudolf Virchow. He proposed that all cells come from pre-existing cells. So you don't just have cells coming out of nowhere, they arise from cells that are already around. So similar to you started out as a single cell, and now you are billions, if not trillions, of cells. So something had to happen, and that was a lot of cell division, which we'll talk about later on. But the idea is to know right now that Rudolf Virchow proposed this idea that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Also later on we'll talk about some exceptions to this rule. So ultimately, our three major ideas of the cell theory are as follows. All living organisms are composed of cells. Now, it may be just one cell, or it might be multicellular. So we are multicellular, but bacteria are made up of just one cell. And if you recall, we've already talked about that with our characteristics of life, that all living things are made up of cells. The other idea, or one of the other ideas, is that the cell is the basic unit of life. And when we're talking about this, we mean in regards to structure and function or organization. So we're going to look at in more detail at the cells and different functions of the cells. But it's important to know that the reason we're looking at cells is because it is the basic unit of life. All life is made up of cells. And then the third major idea was Virchow's idea that cells arise from pre-existing cells. For the most part, this is the accepted cell theory. There have been some additions lately, and we'll talk about those later on, but right now you do need to know about these three major ideas of the cell theory. Also, when you hear the word theory in science and biology, be sure to realize that this is a very rigorously tested and observed idea that is widely accepted. This is not like a theory the way you might say, I have a theory that the sun is actually a cube. That is not a valid theory. Theories in science are well tested and highly accepted in the scientific community and in the community overall. So don't get bogged down by the word theory. In general, in science, theory really does mean that this is what is accepted currently based on the information that we have now. All right, so come in tomorrow knowing these three major ideas of the cell theory and the people who helped contribute to those ideas.